Hello and welcome to another episode. My name's Ross.
Craig.
It's time to put the kettle on because it's tea time. Right, if you actually managed to make tea in a very short space of time, which you probably didn't. In the news today, Craig, take it away.
I mean, they could have paused, but okay. So the first piece of news today is Britvault have confirmed they are going to open their gigafactory in South Wales in River-Thames, which is the former Air Force Base, which happens to be where Aston Martin are currently now. As far as I know, Aston Martin will remain there too. So that might be a good partnership since Britvault will be producing 30 gigawatt batteries, the first in the UK.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Aston Martin could be a really good customer, perhaps. We don't know. But
they need something.
Yeah. So, based on we talked about this before, you talked about Tesla potentially being across the channel. That could still be a thing.
Although weirdly, on that one, I've not heard anything else on that.
Yeah, but until that's been confirmed, at least for now, we'll have Britvault on the coast of the Vale of Morgan. It's looking to bring roughly 3,000 jobs to the area, which is pretty cool. And they've invested up to 1.2 billion. So it's a big investment from an otherwise out of the blue company. They're only looking to list themselves on the London Stock Exchange next year. And they're looking to build this and finish it by the second quarter of 2021. So about a year. That's really quick turnaround.
Yeah. And one for my stock update maybe in a year from now.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they got to look good being the first in Britain. This seemed to happen quite quick. Maybe they know something we don't about Tesla coming. Don't know. But we can come back to in the future.
Owls know. I mean, everyone knows, except no media's been mentioned other than the initial rumor. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of slowed down since. In other news, talking about actually, yeah, there's no segue at all. Invisible light. Invisible light can now be harnessed by solar power cells. It's a major breakthrough.
Sorry, when you say invisible light, do you mean like you just mean the light that it already exists that just isn't in our visible spectrum?
Yes, infrared, ultraviolet, all those bands of light radiation that we can't see. So right now the photovoltaic cells collect visible light, and only a small percentage of it because efficiencies are still relatively low. But now we have the ability to up convert low level light, such as ultraviolet, into essentially higher level light, like visible light, that we can then convert into electricity. It's been seen as a major breakthrough since the majority of light is not visible to us. So we don't see.
Do you know, does that increase the amount of time? Is there periods where we get infrared light that's outside of the normal time frame? Therefore, can they be used? Can't see how they could be used at night time. Surely there's no light, but
yeah, I think it's at least the sun, as far as I'm aware. Yeah,
but it's just got more, because surely the rays still hit it at a certain rate. You're just saying that they could capture more of it when it hits.
Yes. So you've got the full wavelength of light. We can only see, I don't know, X%, which is quite small. We can now capture a greater percentage of that light. So potentially, that means on a cloudy day, maybe you were trying to mention, you've got less visible light. You can still sunburn, which means there's still ultraviolet getting through. Gotcha. So we can now collect that, which is pretty cool. That was announced today as a breakthrough by Australian scientists, where they'll be testing it out, which makes sense. They can probably make use of this quite a lot more than we can. And the process is called photochemical conversion, it just basically changes low level light into higher level light for energy consumption.
Like
Pretty
it.
cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So that makes solar panels a lot more feasible, perhaps, which is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, well, because the issue we've got at the moment is that you can't put them on cars at the moment because they're not going to produce enough from the amount of space that they take up. So sort of while someone has made a car which is entirely run on solar panels, they literally had to cover it, every single inch of it, in order to achieve it. So and even if they made it a meaningful contribution towards the car, I still think if you could have an electric car with a solar panel on top, even so that it can just pick up some, just not 1 mile every hour, because that would be pointless.
Yeah, I mean, let's go really slow. But yeah, there's no actual stats on how much this is going to improve things. The general assumption is that it will improve things, but we don't know how much. I mean, let's say optimistically, it doubles the percentage of light we get. That could be major. So, yeah. I mean, half the amount of cells on the roof, for example, same job. Stuff like that would be amazing. And my third piece of news is, do you remember a few weeks back we discussed the absolute shambles of Uber and how they were dumping a load of their jump bikes?
Yes.
Thousands of them. They weren't even going to break them down to parts. They were just literally going to scrap them.
Okay.
So today, it's been announced that a non-profit called Shared Mobility Inc. has stepped in and taken all of them off Uber, and they're going to produce what they call in a transportation library for free to anyone who wants them.
Good. Well done, them.
Yeah, so well done, Shared Mobility.
Round of applause.
There was obviously a lot of controversy over them doing this, and it was just some sort of cost-saving exercise. But ultimately they've now been saved. Unfortunately, we're not going to see them in the UK. The only reason it's part of the news is because we discussed them previously. The first 3,000 of these bikes will be given to New York, with a further 2,000 or so given probably in the US still to other states. So the UK may not see these, which would be a bit of a shame. But it's nice to know they've been saved.
So where were the bikes from originally?
I'm not sure. I don't think they've saved all of them. They've only saved a percentage. So they've received half already.
Okay.
So maybe they only do in the US. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into Shared Mobility themselves. Maybe they only operate in the US.
Wow.
But yeah, transportation library. New future. Sounds great.
Oh, I forgot to take the bike back. I get a stamp now, and then I get a fine. Damn it. Cool. That's nice. Yes, right, that one. Well done, Uber, for fixing your stupid situation.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not well done Uber. It's well done Shared Mobility Inc.
Well, yes, but Uber had to say yes, I suppose.
Pat back to Uber for finding a way to get rid of it for free, other than crushing them.
Yeah, and well done to all the media agencies and people that moaned about Uber for being morons.
Yes.
You're objective. Well done. All right, well, I got some news if you want it.
Oh, yeah. Fire away.
Starting with, now, I'm going to call her Greta Thunberg, which I believe is her actual name, although most people know her as Greta Thunberg. But I believe it's her name. She won an award, a humanitarian award, to the total value of €1 million, which she then promptly donated immediately to projects that are tackling the climate crisis. So she continues to be a legend. That was it. I just thought I'd start with a bit of nice, positive, good news. Well done, her.
Cool. Nice call to Greta.
Here's £1 million. Give it to someone else. It's fine. In not so good news, River Thames. For those of you watching abroad, we have had some people listening in Australia, haven't we? For those people, the River Thames is the main river in London, known for having dead people, trolleys, all sorts of horrible stuff in there. And
Dead people?
At one point, yeah, in like 1600s. But anyway, that's since been cleaned up. However, even after it's been cleaned up, it is apparently very, very severely polluted with plastic. And according to the BBC article that I read, scientists estimate 94,000 microplastics flow every second.
Second?
Yeah. No, we don't know.
Microplastics, small, yeah?
Yeah, little small fragments of it. So, kind of explains why it's 94,000. But yeah, it's basically it's been measured to be worse than other measured European rivers. And aside from the regular offenders like plastic bottles and things like that, wet wipe seems to be a particular problem.
Yeah. I get leaflets through the door actually from Welsh Water saying, "Don't pour wet wipes in the toilet, please."
Yeah, and these
maybe once every 6 months.
I mean, they were particularly referencing the ones that are classed as flushable wet wipes. And I know in an old place I lived, there was and we were using flushable wet wipes. Don't know whether I was directly involved, but there was a blockage on the same street or whatever because of wet wipes. So it's a problem. Now it's probably a different episode. Maybe we should revisit this again. But for those people that have kids, I remember when for my son, I did look into it in quite a bit of what alternatives there are, and there are actually alternatives now. They're not all. Lots of them claim to be not recyclable, compostable, and disposable in the sense that, biodegradable. I think most of them they'll only degrade under certain perfect conditions, of which they won't get if they're just stuck in a landfill. But there are other ones. Obviously, there's cloth nappies, which have got a bit of a stereotype of being really awkward, but actually some of them are quite not bad now. They're okay. And there's other ones where it's like a 2-in-1. So like you have an outer layer and an inner layer, and one of them you throw away and the other one you can reuse. So yeah, and wet wipes equally. There's stuff for that too. So if you have kids, don't you? You should look. I implore you to self-educate on that particular issue because.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, different subject. I've looked into cloth nappies, and I've never been convinced of the benefits personally. My wet wipes typically stay in the nappy, and they go to landfill, I would assume, with the nappy itself.
Yeah,
so
those nappies don't degrade, most of them anyway. But no, I'd have another look at cloth nappies because there is I can't remember which one it is. So maybe we do this another episode. But there are some brands which are actually quite good. So
yeah, just power into the nappy stage. One year left.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, like, if you want to count the number of nappies, it's a lot of nappies.
I mean, it's at least 60 a month. Yeah.
Moving on. Rather than me lecturing you. So the Vivaro-E, previously mentioned due to British Gas ordering some of them, now available for everyone to order. Now, interestingly, the price, after price reductions, it's coming in at 27,000 for basically a panel van, which I thought wasn't bad. I mean, the caveat is the range. The range for the smaller battery vehicle is only 140 miles, which is not much better than my, to be honest. It's about 50% better, but it's still not, I would say, enough. But the first thought I had when I saw it was it would make a jolly good electric camper van.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing when you said it. Put a bed in the back of that thing. It's good.
It's got exactly the same cubic capacity as a VW transporter, a short wheelbase one. which has been converted too many times. So it clearly that sort of size does work, and it's an electric car.
At 27,000, it sounds cheaper than a transport. Transport's in the 30-odd range, I thought.
Oh yeah, I mean, so obviously it should be 35, but it's got 1,000 knots off it. So
bargain.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have to decide whether you're going to sort of you can probably drive about 2.5 to 3 hours distance before you would have to stop again. So as long as your campsites aren't more than 3 hours apart, should be all right.
So based on the last news we had with Nissan dropping the charging scheme to standardize, do these guys standardize too?
What, to CCS?
Yes.
That's an excellent question, which I do not know. I would presume it is, but let me see if I can find out the answer for you.
Hope so now. That seems to be the market direction.
Does it say it has a CCS connection? Yes, it does.
Ah, perfect. Okay. So Chargemo is no more.
Chademo is no more.
Shadamo. Yeah.
Shadamo. I know it's Chademo or Shadamo, but
who cares? They're gone.
Yeah, screw them. Except that's what I use. So yeah, phase out slowly if you wouldn't mind. Trouble as it is. Right. So that's those guys. Also in electric car news for the UK, we have the VW ID3 is also now available to order. However, caveat, only for those that had already put down a £750 deposit. So unfortunately, that's not news for anyone who isn't already in the know. But it basically means it's coming pretty soon. The VW ID3 is a £38,000 car. I think that's what the higher end version. I think they're doing the same as Tesla, where they sell the higher end version first and then bring out the lower cost of version later. It's got a 260 mile range, which is more ballpark that I would say at the point where you can start sensibly not worrying about anxiety for range and being able to go somewhere and back without worrying about it. So in a Auto Express review of the car, they gave it a 4 out of 5 star rating and said it delivered on being the Golf for the electric era, but it did criticize their interior. So that's what you want. But yeah, so the cheaper version will be coming in the future, but at the moment we don't know when.
What was the price, you say?
38,880. Okay, then last item I have is the CBI and the Net Zero Infrastructure Commission are pushing for the government to up their game in order to hit the net zero economy by 2050. The target that they set a while back, which they've been trying to get it earlier. And these people are basically saying, if you want to bring it any earlier, we really need to step it up a little bit. So the two main strategies that they're coming up with to try and decarbonise the UK's heating infrastructure is our old two favourites, electric and hydrogen. And of course, there is a third strategy, which is a hybrid of the two, because that's just how we roll these days. We have to hybrid everything, although to be honest, that probably isn't a bad idea. But basically, in the electric version, we would need to expand our current renewable wind and solar by about 500%.
Oh, so it's not a small ask.
No, but that's only if you go down the route of swapping natural gas for electric. If we go down the other route, which is to swap natural gas for hydrogen, we still need to 2 or 3 times X our hydrogen output, and we still need to double our electric output because of the growth in electric cars and stuff like that. So basically, these big organizations that sort of are a collaboration of the industry and the businesses within them are basically pushing for lots of changes to the domestic appliances and things even as such as having hydrogen-ready boilers, so that before they go all hydrogen, they stop selling natural gas ones and have ones that can do both.
Well, I assume that every household in the UK is going to get the £5,000 grant from September onwards. We could all buy a hydrogen or at least a hybrid boiler then. Like every household in the UK could, if they're about £5,000.
Yeah, but they want us all to do that in September. No, they definitely want us to do that. Suddenly have, was it 17 million requests for a new boiler? Oh, but yeah, so
yeah.
that is the news. Basically, things are happening in that arena. Lots of pressure going on the government to do something about it.
That's cool. And it feels like a really apt time to do stuff. We've gone through a change radically right now.
Yeah.
Let's meet it with another radical change.
Indeed, we need to learn to manage the resources that we have available better. Speaking of resources, Craig.
Well, thank you very much for the segue. So today, chat about resource-based economies, and it's something that I personally have been interested in for a long time.
Talked about it before, but like years ago.
It's something that's been around for a long time. The idea of a resource-based economy it's just a very difficult thing to pull off, because it's a very all or nothing concept. A country like the UK, we couldn't go resource-based without the rest of the world joining suit. Otherwise, we could easily be destabilized by currency fluctuations in the outside world if we can no longer import lithium because the price has gone up.
We might need to step back a bit and go, what is it?
We do, yeah.
I mean, I know the basics, so you'll be teaching me the basics over again, but thereafter, I'm all yours.
Cool. So a resource-based economy, kind of as it sounds, is a system in which all goods and services are provided and available without any debt or servitude. And servitude would be defined as any money, credits, barter. Basically, you get what you need, potentially what you want if the resources are available, and you haven't got to do anything for it. And that's the idea. The why is right now, all resources should be seen as common heritage to all people. For example, no one owns the water. It belongs to all of us.
Yep.
So if we can figure out how to divvy that up properly, this type of idea really has a lot of legs. And it's based on the premise that Earth is abundant. It's a plentiful resource of everything we need. All we've got to do is stop throwing those resources away in just really poor, unproductive methods such as capitalism. Because so unfortunately,
a complete replacement for capitalism is an alternative way of doing things. No money, you just have resources and then someone manages them.
Well, not someone, something. The idea here would be it would have to be something like an AI. It'd have to be some sort of artificial intelligence who can control. I suppose the way of thinking about it, imagine like the internet of commodities. So we got the internet of things, got the internet of knowledge. This would be the internet of commodities where everything is free. You give up any private rights, copyright, you produce things, they go out there, and resources are freely available. That's what I mean, where it would have to be all or nothing, because it wouldn't just work for one country. We would all have to get on board. So it would kind of be like all global resources would be managed by an AI who would act as if they were a public utility. You can request 40 tons of hydrogen to build these 17 million boilers. And the AI would say, we've only got 35, so you can make 15. That's what you got. And then the answer is, okay, cool. And the AI's job is to be sustainable. So it would have a tally effectively of the world's resources, which would require some mapping because we don't actually know. But these things and the idea of these things are within our reach technology-wise. We can do it.
But what about decisions like, so they're talking about doing a hybrid system to get us all over to hydrogen. So they're talking about, before they make a hydrogen boiler, they're going to make a boiler that can do both. So that's, if you like, using it's using the resources of the metal or whatever it is that's used to make the boiler to manage the other resource, but it's doing it twice for, I'm not entirely sure what reason, other than I don't know. But let's say, but who then decides whether that was a good idea? AI again?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be the AI, I suppose. I suppose to get deeper into this idea would effectively be a technocracy, which is you'd have matter experts in charge of certain fields, perhaps. Like we sort of do it now in democracy, but kind of democracy where the experts and advisors advise and make decisions rather than politicians. Yeah. So you'd have someone, top of the field medically would make medical decisions, which makes sense. I mean, it happens today anyway, except they typically have a health secretary above them who makes some other decisions, perhaps, like how much money we're going to give the NHS. And then the doctors who actually do the job have to just live in that world. But if that health secretary was actually a doctor, that probably wouldn't happen.
Obviously, so, you can appoint, who decides who's the expert.
That's the cool thing. We have this entire subject called science, where data, principles, methodology, those type of things reign supreme. It's very easy to determine who's actually good at what they say they are. Whereas politicians, they may talk the talk, but they don't necessarily walk the walk. An actual scientist is data proven to be a certain caliber, and the entire point of science is to be results have to be data proof, and they are always getting proven wrong because new data is found, and that's perfectly fine. If society was more that way, where methodology was king, and we all have this general understanding, I think the idea is that right now science works globally all the time, solving problems. It goes past all barriers of language, skin color, gender. None of those things matter because it's science. It's all based on mathematics. They're all the same language. Scientists speak the same language. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Yeah.
You give a concept of a car prototype to China, to Japan, to India, to America, they'll build the same thing because there's no idea of there's no interpretation. It's a matter of fact. It's data laden. So if society was that way, I think that would be very powerful, and it has to be that way in a resource-based economy. And I think there's no emotion-driven AI. It wouldn't say, I could give you 10 tons of hydrogen to build all 17 million boilers if you wish, but don't particularly like you that much, so I'm only going to give you 5. That scenario will never happen. It'll just be, this is what you can have, and you can have the rest next year when we produce them all. And your answer is always going to be, okay. There's no agenda. No, that's just the way it is.
I guess because the agenda is to try and make the machine that will make you money ultimately, isn't it? So
exactly.
I guess you won't ask for a machine Well, that's the theory, isn't it? You won't ask for a machine that you don't need because you might be thinking, well, I can make more money because I can sell them a hybrid boiler now, and then in another 5 years I can make a whole bunch of new ones and I can make twice as much money. But you wouldn't have that incentive if
Exactly.
money out of it. You just go, well, why don't we just go straight to hydrogen?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the idea of capitalism, I mean, hypothetically, abundance, sustainability, efficiency, they're all enemies of capitalism because it's scarcity logic, I think it's called, where the idea is I can make you something that'll only last a year and I'll sell you another one next year. There's no benefit for me to sell things that last forever. There's no benefit because I'll have one customer will buy it and then, okay, now that person's gone. You're no longer a customer. You bought it. It will work forever. Whereas in a resource-based economy, you're very much encouraged to build the perfect hydrogen boiler and then chuck 17 million out there. And the perfect one would probably be modular. So when we get new technology, plug and play.
Yeah, and use something like titanium or something instead of something cheaper and easier.
Exactly. We will build with abundance, efficiency, sustainability in mind.
There's bound to be some sort of still human decision-making issue somewhere along the lines, because ultimately the flaw in this plan, it's got to be us, because it usually is. That even deciding to do, okay, well, I think we should do hydrogen. Well, actually, I don't. I think we should do electric boilers.
Well, that word there, I think, I'll get wiped out in science because science doesn't say I think. Science says, here's the evidence.
Well, okay, true.
So if hydrogen versus electricity, I mean, they can be proven right or wrong. If there's a need to build 17 million hydrogen boilers, and there's some sort of mathematical evidence to suggest this will do X, and X is good and better than Y of a competitive idea, those things could be competed against in real time.
But again, you would still want the AI to make that decision ultimately, because otherwise then you have lobbying for, well, I think this is a better idea, I think this is a better idea. Because if you haven't got money, you might still have, reputation or some form of fame or something. People want to do it for.
Potentially. I mean, the idea of lobbying would probably disappear too, because lobbying typically is for money. but yeah, I get what you mean. Reputation. Yeah. So let's say Dr. X makes the best hydrogen boiler ever. Then Dr. Y comes along and proves otherwise.
Dr. Y.
Yeah.
He's always
I think
one question.
Yeah, the best doctor ever. So I suppose, I suppose who can prove it? And it's not really proving it to peer review, it's proving it with data.
Just wild.
They can run it in a simulation for the AI or via the AI.
Yeah.
Like we should, before, when we get to this world, we'll have the entire resources of the entire planet mapped. We'll have to, because we need to know what's available. I don't know exactly how you do that. If we develop some sort of deep ground scan technology where we can just literally, I don't know, pulse the earth and know exactly how many tons of tin exist in the ground. I mean, we could probably do that at some point. Right now, there's no incentive.
They do it in Star Trek, don't they? They just fly over the top, test out. Yeah, it's got this, and this. Should be good. We'll be fine.
Exactly. Kind of feels like you just have a massive electrode, chuck it in the floor, send some electricity through, whatever comes back. We know based on the voltage we've lost, there's 42,500 tons of tin. Bang, done. Yeah, I mean, that's probably a thing. I'm sure Dr. Y will tell us.
Yeah.
But I suppose on the outset, resource-based economy, what does it sound like to you? Does it sound ideal, perfect? This is the world you want?
It sounds like, on the one hand, it sounds probably too good to be true type thing, because it's just hard to imagine. Well, it's hard to imagine because it requires you to undo everything that we typically normally do. There's also the fact that it has to be everyone. It has to.
Does.
You can't even have. like it feels like it's vulnerable to even a group or a person deciding that they want something different, and then are we going to start having campaigns which basically say that the AI is abusing us or is controlling our lives or something, and we're going to start seeing social media ads for, because I'm assuming we can still have social media, for all these things that aren't true, so that when eventually we go, well, actually, yeah, maybe we shouldn't let the AI make these decisions, because these ones are about humanity, and it just feels like it's still open to someone going in and screwing it up, even if you got it right. Even if you got it running, and to get it running, I just cannot see, obviously, which is in itself a problem. But like, I can't see planet Earth having it. It seems more likely that it will be an experiment done on a Titan moon or something one day, where someone goes, right, we're going to try out this theory. We've had this one around for, it was first coined in 19 whatever it was, even if that, and then yeah, we'll run it in Titan, and then it'll run for about 5 years, and then something will go wrong, and then we'll just abandon it.
Essentially, I mean, where's Musk? Why is he not taking this model to Mars? Like, Mars is going to be a resource-based economy. It has to be.
Right, we should tweet him, or you should tweet him and ask him, is Mars going to be a resource-based economy? Because he might turn around and go, that won't work.
Maybe. I don't imagine the people going to Mars are not going to be matter experts. Kind of feels like you have to be. They're going to be like top, like, botanists, top scientists in their field. They're not going to be sending politicians.
So basically, we're saying like going to Mars would be like going to university in the 50s or whatever. Like only the best in the class can go. Not because they can't afford it, because they're not allowed to go, because Mr. Musk said no. I'm sorry, you're not smart enough. Stay here.
I don't know. But I imagine that would probably be a certain degree of it. But I mean, it's not really based on intelligence. It's just based on, I suppose it's based on usefulness. Like, if you are freed up 100%, you don't have to work. There's no incentive, perhaps, to do things. You have to be driven by your own desire to want to do things. And I think people like us, we are. Like, if we weren't paid and we can just sit down and try and design the best hydrogen boiler we can, I think we'd be happy for years. And then might get bored eventually, but then try and do something else. We won't ever stop and go, yeah, I'm just going to just lie down on the beach forever now, because we get bored.
Yeah. No, so I think when I looked into the thing I found the most interesting was more, because the stuff we covered so far is like the high level feels too intangible. The stuff I liked was the like how the actual city would look, and how we would live our lives. Because they have like those circular things, where like the university or something was in the middle, and you would and you'd live on the outer ring, and then the utility would be somewhere in the middle. And you could choose to live in a high rise, what we call them, skyscraper type building, and live in the sort of city life, or you could go live on the edge of the circle, and you could basically feel like you're living on your own or with your family out in the sticks.
Yes, you could choose. Before we get onto that, I just want to cover that the resource-based economy is not a new idea. It's been on for a long time. Was first coined by the anti-Gornish movement in Canada, and then was taken up by Jacques Fresco. And that's what you're talking about, is the Venus Project. And that is what he developed into. And before we chat about the Venus Project, I want to chat about Jack himself, because he seems like an absolute legend.
Hasn't he passed on now?
He has.
He was
died. What's that?
Like 90 odd or something when he
was 101.
Was he? Wow, well done him.
Super old, and unfortunately also outlived his kids. So, pros and cons of being that old. But yeah, I mean, Jacques himself, born in 1916. He died in 2017, unfortunately. So a couple of years ago. but he himself is an American futurist. He sees himself as a self-described social engineer. That's kind of what he was always trying to solve, is the social problem. And what he invented to fix that was the Venus Project and all the, what you're talking about, the big rings and the prefab houses, all those type of things, transportation hubs. They were all effectively trying to solve the social problem of capitalism and moving away from a money-based system to a resource-based system. But the reason he was stuck with this and the catalyst was the Great Depression, which he was a teenager in. So, you know, he saw a lot of this happening around him. He lived through that time. And I think he must have got to the point where money was quickly becoming the enemy. And you know, he didn't really want to be involved in that. So he lived through great times of scarcity. He knows what it feels like. So he wanted to solve that ultimately. And he decided it was a social problem, not a technology problem. Even in 1930s, he believed we had the technology then to solve this problem. And arguably we did. I mean, we sent some to the moon 20 years later. So could we have instead spent all that money building a resource-based economy? Perhaps. You know, maybe the US could have done it and gone alone. Maybe that would have worked. We don't know. But yeah, he himself, self-taught. So already up there as a top legend. He worked in a bunch of industries, building aircraft, structural engineering, architecture, ended up as a lab researcher, researching social effects of mice. I mean, he's been around the block. He also once joined the KKK.
Did he?
As a social experiment to see if he could change their minds.
Right. Sounds like a risky experiment.
A very interesting guy, yeah.
An excellent excuse. No, I'm not a member of the KKK. It's just a social experiment. That's what it was. Yeah.
As long as you keep a lab report, you're fine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he also went through a period of, when he was a teenager, he also joined a communism youth group. And after listening to what they say and basically disagreeing with most of it, stood up and shouted out that Karl Marx is all wrong, and then was shortly expelled. Which is nice, because when you do talk about resource-based economy, a lot of people jump to communism and how they could be seen as the same way. And they are fundamentally different. I mean, ultimately, communism is a failed idea, because there's a person in charge. And that's the entire point of having AI in charge, because people can't be trusted. So communism there's at least two types of communism has happened. You've got the Chinese type and the Russian type. Speaking of the Russian type specifically, they effectively wanted to give everyone the same, which meant that people who were in places of privilege lost out. People in places of poverty gained. However, ultimately, all lost, because they all at least lost something as they were working for the state. And the state ultimately wins in that world.
Right.
And obviously, people were getting killed, end up in the gulags. The same thing happened in China, except millions of people died because of Chairman Mao. Dark times. Communism and resource-based economies are potentially similar in the sense of they try and want to give everyone equal opportunities for resources.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're not driven by people. It's a society change. It's not a person. So it has to be an AI.
The corruption element, that's possible.
Yes. And getting rid of money, I think, reduces corruption substantially. Because, I mean, if you have the ability to get any phone you want, I mean, not any phone you want, really, there'll probably be only a phone. It'll be the best phone. Why would you stop about 40 of them? What's the point?
Yes.
So stuff like that would probably go. something you probably quite like. In his midlife, since obviously he's lived quite a long time, he developed something called the sandwich house. This was in the 60s, and it was the entire idea of prefabricated, modular, component-built, low-cost housing, which came to about $7,000 for a house.
Okay. And how did that work?
Not,
What's a sandwich?
so
What
what's
is
the just prefab housing, kind of made from aluminium components in some parts. So not quite a dome, but he was going down that idea, and eventually the Venus Project came from all this, and domes, especially one big dome in the middle and circular structures, became the ideas. And yeah, as you were saying, the Venus Project is built for efficiency first. So you have a big circular city. In the middle would be the university, the school. Outer rings would be shops, basically, the way you can get your things. Then outwards again would be all houses built where you can live if you wish, closer to the center. Outwards again, outer ring would be more country style life if you want to live there instead. And then the outer rings would be the agricultural sections where food is grown in vertical farms.
Yeah.
So
is vertical farms a specific thing?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the perfect ecological future, it has to be the Venus Project, really. It's completely resource neutral, in a sense. The AI would be global. I mean, every city could also have its own smaller AI version. And everything is maglev technology to transport things back and forth cities. Certain cities could specialize in things. I mean, ultimately, it's down to the residents who live in these cities.
Yeah. I think there was even, I'm sure there was like an idea of scrapping country borders, scrapping countries, and having taken the same places that we already have, but basically recognizing that rather than it being a country which has got 3 main places at the population, to see it as 3 mega cities that are spaced apart, and then basically you just live in the mega city, or you live on the edges of the mega city, and then you travel from that city to another mega city, and that's it. Like, there isn't anything in between, or if there is anything in between, it's for resources or solar farms or whatever else.
Yeah, you would let the environment recover. Basically, you would live within your circles, which could also be on the sea, not necessarily on the land, and yeah, you would live there. But you could travel between cities using maglev, very quickly, very efficiently. Yeah, I think the idea of it, the city itself, I mean, you wouldn't have cars, you'd have bikes, or you'd walk. They're not that big where you would need to do anything else. There's no actual sizes specified, because obviously these things don't exist yet.
Yeah.
But let's say a city is about 10 miles. So you could walk one end to the other if you wish. But at the same time, you could still house, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people.
I guess it would just scale depending on the population.
Yeah.
And you could just say maximum population of this one is 100,000, max population this one is 500,000, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, Jacques has been working this for decades. Unfortunately, he's died before he could see it to fruition. His partner, Roxanne, she's continuing the project now. The reason it's called the Venus Project is because it's based in a place called Venus in Florida. They spent all their money and bought a 1,000-acre plot of land, and they started building the prefab houses as a proof of concept.
Yeah.
So it's not strictly a resource-based economy there, but the idea is these are the things we could build. This is how it could look. This is how it could work. Very, very clever inventions by a very talented guy. So, yeah, I mean, the idea behind the actual city itself is one thing, but it's the society change that needs to happen first and move towards methodology, which I feel we're still a far distance away from. I mean, we still have a lot of religion in the world, for example, which is almost the opposite of methodology. Because, like, for example, I think the idea was that an astronomy book is published today, by next year it's vastly out of date, and another one will be published, and that will happen every year forever. Whereas most religions hold a single book as truth over generations without any idea of updating it or anything. So the idea of methodology is lost, perhaps, on those people.
Isn't that the one is it the same as the one if you would take every single book that's available today and burn them all or dispose of them all, then the books you're talking about would come back and the others would not?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Religious books wouldn't come back. Things about star signs wouldn't come back because they're in a world where fact does actually run is the decider of whether things are published or not. Then they can't prove it, so therefore it won't come back. And in some cases, it's just, if you see a religious book as a story and not fact, or not a description of what happened in the past, then you obviously have no way of creating that. Whereas even history that some books are written about, you can dig up the same stuff and you can find out the information again, but you can't do that for those sort of things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of those books are social context based, whereas science is a generic law of the universe. If we lose that all today, we will rediscover it. Just a matter of time. And if we find life on another planet, they'll have the same laws, because that's just the way the universe works. And I think that's a very powerful thing, that the fact that scientists can work different languages and have no blocks. We could do the same with another planet, another solar system. It's very obvious the way to go, perhaps. But first, we need to move towards methodology. And I don't feel we're making a lot of progress.
No, the problem is it's one, because it does need to be all or nothing. It feels like it's a bit of a non-starter. You can't really. I mean, how do you even begin? You can't begin. You need to trash everything and rebuild from scratch, which means how do you even get to that? Mars is the only possible way of doing it, of having it, proving it somewhere else in a closed environment, and even then it's difficult because you're going to want to trade people that are probably most interested, with the possible exception, although I'm ruling it out, to Elon Musk, is they'll look at Mars as an untapped resource that they can profit from, as opposed to a standalone thing. So it's going to be some descendant of who gets a spaceship one day, takes 100 people with him, and starts his own colony. That way. Oh, and the top of the range AI that he has to take with him.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. The AI isn't there yet. We don't have an AI that's capable of making those decisions for us yet.
I think we do.
Do you?
I definitely think we do. Yeah. I mean, if you think about what the questions we would actually ask it, I think we could do that ourselves. I think they would just be algorithm based. If you want to build X, the AI will tell you if X is available or not. I think it would be a very simple thing, perhaps.
But
because you've mapped the Earth, you've told it how many tons of everything exists ever, and you say you want to build this, the AI could say yes, no, this is the menu you could actually build, and it could smartly divvy out amongst the cities.
And you think we currently have the AI that can do that without writing any actual software, as it were?
To make a Boolean decision on resource count, yes, I think we can. A smart AI that can validate an idea, yeah, different story. I think we would still need matter experts in our room. But let's say we had, I don't know, a committee of some sort of matter experts, not politicians, yeah. Who can actually, I don't know, take an idea and be driven by, exactly how science works today. Science filters up the chain. I mean, I suppose the unfortunate thing is if science is not popular science, it may not get funding in the first place, which means it won't get research.
Take our current problem with, do I spend money on working out whether hydrogen is a good resource to use because it's abundant, or because it's still a bit of an unknown, or do I spend more money on solar and see whether I can improve the efficiencies of them and then use that resource instead? You can't answer that question unless you do the test. You need to do the science in order to work out which one's more likely. And even then, if you're measuring hydrogen today versus solar today, hydrogen might win in more cases because we have a theoretical understanding of the maximum that hydrogen can do. We don't yet for solar because, well, now that we've just realized that we can use some of the other light, well, if we didn't factor that in the first time around, then your theoretical number is going to be a lot lower. So you're just going to say, well, no.
But if there's no cost involved, what's the drawbacks? If hydrogen always wins against electricity and solar, so be it. Hydrogen, being the most abundant in the universe, would probably score quite highly on the AI's preference. It's like, can I have 40,000 times this? Yeah, sure. Here you go.
But that's not all there is, though, is it? Because if by doing the science and our technology improves, that can sway you towards the same reason that we've realized that we can use electric cars instead of petrol is because we've done the science and we've worked out that actually we can get that to work.
I suppose the electric car came first, didn't it? Over 100 years ago, but we shelved it because petrol was profitable.
Yes, but we probably also shafted it because the technology just wasn't there at the time. It wasn't obvious at the time that we could get more out of it. Because until you actually do the research, you don't know whether you can get more out of it.
No.
But that's always a question that typically gets wondered because of the fact that there is no money to be made by asking questions. But there is lots of money to be made out when you make the answer. So which is the issue with, unless someone like Elon Musk comes along and says, right, well, actually, I'm going to work out how to make this technology work and I'm going to profit from it in 10 years from now, then, no one's going to do it.
Okay. So do you think in this world you would just have competing, not really competing, I suppose they would be more collaborative because sharing results makes sense. There's no competition because there's nothing to win. It could be reputation, as you say. That might be something that would drive certain people. But I think ultimately collaboration makes more sense because I think the idea was that we are functionally selfish as people, which means we don't necessarily care about ourselves. We care about ourselves and what's around us, because obviously what's around us also affects us. So we try to improve what's around us too. So functionally selfish would make us think my house would be better with this. But by proxy, if my house is maybe so as everyone else's, or at least a certain percentage of everyone else. So as humans, we probably will just slowly improve things and help each other out.
Yeah, I think we're also, or some of us more so than others, but instinctively competitive though. So I think it's whether or not you can tame that competitiveness to, okay, well, we come up with a better idea then, as opposed to, what happens in a situation where someone goes, I think I've got a really good idea and I want to test it, but I need some help to do it. And then, the system says no, because I don't, you haven't got any proof of your idea. And I go, yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the proof of the idea. And then it doesn't happen. So they, what, do they just not do it? Or do they just do it on their own because they don't like to be told no and they're human and they're therefore going to try things? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose it depends how you imagine this AI to be. Like, do you imagine as Skynet or just a generic resource counter? Like, maybe it can't make these decisions. Maybe these decisions are best placed for people. But I mean, there'll be plenty of people.
Don't agree with that either. I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, I can imagine. So I think of that world where I go into the university, and either I'm working on a project I've been working on for a while, and I'm interested until I've completed that thing, or I know for myself I have some weird idea every day anyway. So maybe I have one idea one day that I want to do, but obviously I need to have access to other minds. I need access to resources in order to do that for bits that I can't figure out myself. At that point, I need some mechanism by which I could say, I can I have some people, please? For some systems to say yes. How do I get
that sort of already exists, I suppose. Like, think tanks, like Dragon's Den, effectively.
Yeah,
you could pitch your idea, and then people in the room will go, "Yep, I'll come and join your project. That sounds great."
Sure, but we also know that it's standard that you'll come up with an idea, you'll tell people, and about 1,000 people will tell you you're crazy, and then one person will go yes. And that's the world we're used to. We're used to a world where we have to get told no 999 times before somebody says. But ideally, if it's an economy which is designed to help us improve our purely based on resources, and it's supposed to help us be innovative to improve the use of those resources, you would hope that I wouldn't have to be told no quite so many times before I get the opportunity.
No,
I love the idea. I love the idea of just, every day, if I wake up and I'm feeling not like I'm just not in the mood or whatever, I'd have to go to work today. That's fine. But most of the time I can go, there's a place I can go full of very clever people who are dedicated to doing something and not there because they have to be, or because they're just trying to pay the bills or whatever, any other reason. They just want to be there doing stuff. That sounds like a wonderful day-to-day life to live.
Yeah. And that won't be everyone, but there will be people there who perhaps don't have any ideas, don't really want the idea, perhaps. Maybe they've done it already, and they just want to join someone's team, and be part of something. Yeah. And they're looking for someone like yourself to come with an idea and run with it. I mean, these things, they're going to be temporary as such. With the resources at your access and disposal, with no money as a hindrance, there's no reason why you can't bring something to prototype very quickly. And those people will be there to help you. And they're floaters. There's no contract to say they have to stick with you. Like, they could peel off, they could join teams, more people could join you whenever they want. It's a truly, community effort.
Yeah.
And that does seem to work. When any community-based, initiative where people are just pulled together, those things do seem to work.
I can imagine though that the true geniuses of our time historically have had a reputation for being difficult or whatever, just not socially acceptable or something. And you can see that those people no one wants to work with them because they don't have to. It's not like they're being, if they're being paid to, they'll do it because they have to. But if they can choose whether or not they like the person, they go, "No, I like him." I'm not going to pick someone's over. I know there have been. Would you just not work with that person? Which people not work with Elon because he's too demanding? This guy never shuts up. I'm going to work with someone a bit nicer.
Potentially. I mean, he was difficult, wasn't he?
But I guess if these are your worst problems, as opposed to people just stealing money from the poor or whatever it is, that all the other things that currently happen now, I guess it's a different world, a lesser of the two evils. But yes, there's still fundamentally the issue of how on earth do you start it?
Well, one thing to think of as well is that our generation put into a resource-based economy, a lot of us wouldn't cope well. Only a small percentage of us would. This thing really wouldn't take off properly, perhaps, for another generation or two. Our kids, maybe, where they're born into this world, they have no concept of money, doesn't exist.
That's the other thing.
Education's great.
You have to wipe everyone's memory, don't you, really? Because
our current generation, yes.
Yeah.
But this isn't going to happen quickly. It's going to be over generations. It might take 100 years to get to this.
Oh, well,
we'll be long gone. But it's going to be society changes over time. Like, for example, the rise of atheism in the last 10 years between the 2009 census, 2019 census, in the UK at least, has completely shot up. And that could have been multiple reasons. A, there are just more atheists now. People are turning their backs to theism. Or 2009, people take themselves as Christian because they didn't really know what to do. And that's one of the arguments to say that, technically Britain is a Christian country. So if they ask you, what religion are you? Christian. Could have just been an educational thing. And then maybe 2019 is a bit more clear what atheism, what agnosticism, all those type of things mean. So the numbers go up. But that could be an upward trend. 2029, we see it go up again. 2039, we could be, that could be it. Never know. In our kids' generation, religion could cease to exist. Not saying that's potentially a good thing or a bad thing. It's just in the course of moving towards methodology, I think seeing religion as we do today, the ancient Greeks, like we don't take Zeus seriously. Why would we take any other god seriously? We see him as myths and, just folklore.
Mm.
And nothing else has been invented since, I don't know, the Greeks were, how long ago were they? 6,000 years. Christianity's about 2,000-3,000 years. So, maybe we got a couple hundred years left now.
Okay. Right.
So sorry to bash on religion. It just seemed like an obvious example.
I'm not offended by it. Other people might, but so basically what you're saying is in about 100 years from now, our grandkids or great grandkids will basically get sent off to another planet, raised by robots, and then live in a resource-based economy without never knowing whatever happened before.
Potentially. I mean, you make it sound quite dystopian. Get sent off to these labor camps on Mars.
All I can, not so much sending off labor camps. It's just they need to have no memory of how it was before. They need to grow up being used to being basically told what to do by the robots in a sensible way. Yeah.
Okay. So
this doesn't feel like one of those things I can act on.
Think about it this way then. There's a concept called generational paradox where change happens faster than we think. And when we're confronted with the actual evidence of things, we often think it's wrong. Like if you tell me a number right now, how long ago would you say everyone in Europe came from the same person? How long ago in the past would you say that was? Everyone in Europe's common ancestor.
I don't know how to answer that question without potentially sounding very dumb.
It's not scripted. Check it out.
How many years have humans been on the planet?
Okay. As humans, as in Homo sapiens, about 200,000 years.
I'm going to go with then 80,000 years.
80,000 years to the most common ancestor in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. How long then would you say for the world's most common, for us every single person in the world today, to get back to our most single ancestor that we all have in common, we all came from?
Presumably about 200,000 years.
Nope. That's a good example there of the generational paradox. Europe.
What?
In Europe, only 1,000 years ago did we come from a single ancestor. 35 generations. Only 3,000 years ago, roughly 100 generations, we were all related to a single ancestor.
Right.
I mean, fact check all this, but it's meant to be like, that can't be right.
Well, that's what my brain's currently doing, yeah. Is that well? Hold on. So, like, if it's 200,000 years ago that we started.
200,000 years ago would be the part of the Homo race. Modern humans are about 20 to 60,000 years.
But you're saying there's 197,000 years worth of human life before we have a common ancestor?
Yes. And
how is that
somebody living today would be the common ancestor for everyone in 3,000 years' time. Mind blown. It's a mathematical formula, basically.
Another cup of tea before I can even focus on that one.
Yeah, it's a mathematical formula in a sense of, we obviously, each of us have two parents, who then have two parents, and they keep spanning out. But obviously, because there's more people around today than there were in the past, we can't keep multiplying, duplicating. So mathematically, we all have to come to one at some point. And that point in Europe is roughly 1,000 years ago. And in the world is roughly 3,000 years ago.
That sounds
mathematically
more theoretical than actual, but okay.
No, it's very much it's mathematical fact. It's been accepted. That's typically the accepted time period.
Right.
There's a good book on this called The History of Everyone Who's Ever Lived by Adam Rutherford. Discusses this entire idea and the idea of generational paradox. He uses this to open up every single one of his presentations.
Right.
Because he knows it messes with you. It can't sound right.
Yeah, it's a bit of audience participation, isn't it? Of them going, what? No.
It does. I mean, even the concepts of we're all descended from Vikings, if you're European. We're all related to kings and queens. Our ancestors would include King Charlemagne of France, roughly 1,000 years ago. We all come from him, all of us. And that's just basically how genetics work. Roughly in Europe, at least 1,000 years ago, 80% of everyone who lived turned into us, assuming 20% roughly didn't have any kids and their lineage died. So 80% of everyone who lived 1,000 years ago produced all 7 billion of us today. And you keep going back by a factor of 8, and you start getting tinier and tinier and tinier amounts till you get to 1. And now it's 1,000 years ago in Europe, 3,000 years ago in the world. Anyway,
yeah.
Complete side note, but
good.
On that realization, change happens bloody fast.
Yes.
So 35 generations ago, we were all related to the same person in Europe. So who's to say in 3 to 5 generations,
whatever resource based.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I think we'll be.
You heard it here first, except you probably didn't. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hope someone does watch this and fact checks all this stuff, because I had to double check it. I had to look it up twice. Yeah, it's really cool.
Nobody can not say you don't put your effort into this podcast. I mean, you looked it up twice. That's dedication right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So other than that, I mean, will it work, basically? Like, we can say it could happen, and we can see how it could happen, and we potentially believe it should happen, but will it work?
I don't know. It's one of those things I just don't know if it's possible to know until you actually just try. Because even when you try, you're going to find this. Well, okay, you need to tweak that. You need to tweak this. You need to tweak that. And is that something you can tweak on the run, or do you have to then go scrap it? Sorry, wait another generation, send out some more kids.
I don't know. Jacques himself, yeah, he doesn't like the word utopia. He's basically saying the Venus Project and the resource-based economy is not utopia. It's just a better version of what we have today using our applied technology that we have, which is quite a modest way of saying, I have no idea if this is the best way, but it's better than today. And I completely agree with that.
I'll give them that. Right. Well, hold on a second. There is one more bit of news to be had.
Oh, just in? Hot off the press?
Not actually early, about an hour ago, or half an hour ago, something. So the big news event of the day, which no one's going to hear about until tomorrow when we publish this, is Tesla are publishing their Q2 earnings today, because they are. That's just they just do it every quarter. But this one's particularly important because if they post a profit, then they are officially eligible to be entered into the S&P 500, which is, for you don't know, it's a US stock index, which basically trillions of pounds goes into from all over the world. And then by being entered into that same index, that means that a percentage of those trillions of pounds goes into Tesla automatically. So if they get that, is expecting it to go a bit crazy. So Tesla releases the results, and they delivered a profit. So bear in mind, every other car maker made quite a significant loss during COVID. Tesla did not. Trying to see whether I can see what the actual number is.
So you're expecting a positive result today?
I was expecting a positive one. Analysts were expecting a 14 pence per share loss.
When you say was, the announcement is in 25 minutes.
No.
No,
it was about
35 minutes ago.
35 minutes or an hour ago. So it's already out. They delivered a profit. Basically, it's all gone crazy. So instead of a 14-cent loss per share, it's a small profit, but it's still a profit of 50 cents per share, which basically, although it doesn't sound like much, 64 cents difference. It crushes the expectations. So I can't read and talk at the same time, but basically they've done it. So
nice. So they're in the S&P 500, which is America's biggest stock index.
They're now eligible for it. They're not in it now, but now that you have to have the last 4 quarters average being in profit and the last actual one in profit as well. And because they only posted a small profit, I think last time their average wasn't quite right, but this time they've had a profit for all 4 quarters and including this one. And yes, so sure enough, they have done it, which basically has already sent the stock up about another 5.5% since the market closed at what would be 9 p.m. our time. So yeah,
fantastic. And you are personally happy, I assume?
I did, yes. I mean, I had I deserve lots of abuse for this, but I had trimmed back my stock holding after the rise to 1700 because I have been sort of long investing in it and also doing a bit of short trading on them as well, just because I'm trying to learn the game really. So I had trimmed back when they went up to 1700. I did buy a couple more today before the news because I had a pretty strong feeling it was going to be a profit. So, so yes, I made some money on that today. That's all very good. I can't remember what 5% equates to, but
I don't know, $1,700 a share now.
it went up. It hit that about a week ago or so.
Bloody hell! I
I
think last I looked, it was like 700, 800.
Yeah, and it was only like 200 or something a year ago when I started investing in them. So yeah,
They've gone ridiculous.
Another $80 to $90 per share up since the market closed. So yeah, Tesla share holders very happy right now.
It's shame we're not live. The old news tomorrow.
I know. Well, yes. Well,
when they're all buying their yachts.
Yes.
But yeah, does Musk get a payout? Does this trigger another payout? I mean, not like he needs more money, but
he's already triggered his payout. I think from hitting certain. He had to hit over 10 billion or something for a period of time, and so he's already got his.
Yeah.
It's when it's to clarify. It's not like he doesn't actually receive money. He receives options for stock. So options to buy more stock, as opposed to here's a sum of money. So he's now worth another 550, whatever it is, billion more on paper. But obviously, if the stock market price falls back down to 300 tomorrow, probably not going to happen, right? But if it did, then he would lose all that worth.
Fair enough. Okay.
So now we should publish this episode as quickly as possible so that we're remotely current. And then, yeah.
Well, based on I would love a chat about resource-based economies and post-capitalism. It's nice for you to interject a bit of hardcore capitalism straight in the middle of this.
Yes, sorry.
To like to talk about how our current world works and basically what we'd like to see end.
Yes, I'd hate the fact that I've just profited from Tesla. It's awful. We should definitely not be doing that. I just want a Tesla. That's what it is. If you just gave me for a resource-based economy, you could just give me the car, and then I wouldn't need to do this. It's an outrage.
Arguably, we wouldn't need cars. Tesla wouldn't exist.
Don't need to move.
Musk would exist. Probably.
Yeah.
He'd be on the research outpost on Mars.
Yeah. He would have been working at some, university somewhere, developing a cool car, which he would have just maybe named after a old scientist who was particularly interested in electricity. I don't know, pick one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Edison Roadster has got him like sort of ring. But I mean, if he does get a 5 billion payout, I'm sure the Venus Project wouldn't mind some cash. Kind of needs to get this meshed out a little bit, really, because it's going to take some time. And unfortunately,
this is your act. You want us to now tweet to Elon to ask him to donate some money to the Venus Project. That's your chosen act for the day.
I mean, that'd be great. Yeah.
Pull
some strings. You're a shareholder. I have no power.
I was gonna say you go first, and I'll retweet you.
But ultimately, we want to get to this version of the world. It's possible, but yeah, right now we're solving the wrong problems.
Yeah. All we can ask people really to do in the interim, surely, is just to at least try and think that way, even if we don't. So, for example, if you remember, we talked last week about precious plastics, and I've since spoken to some people about what they want to do, and I was asked the question: Would you be happy to collaborate? Would you be happy to share your ideas with me, as opposed to us? Because the guy I was talking to doesn't live locally to me, really. He's quite far away. And he asked the question of, would you be willing to collaborate or, as opposed to compete with each other? And obviously I had a mental mindset that, well, it's not about money, it's about trying to use up as much plastic as possible. So yes, you need money in capitalist society in order to make the system work, but of course I'd share my ideas. So yeah, all we can ask is that people think more that way, and do what they're actually trying to do, as opposed to just make money. Because generally speaking, from my experience, if you try and make money, it doesn't work, or it doesn't work.
No, no, and ultimately it doesn't make you happy either.
That was included in it, doesn't work. And you might actually successfully make money, but it won't be what you necessarily want.
No. Yeah, so I like the way that Jack himself summarized what he'd like to see everyone do, and that's pledge allegiance to methodology.
Amen to that, because that's not an appropriate word to say.
We could reappropriate it to something else.
All right, fair.
I mean, pledge allegiance is already a take a piss thing, I suppose. Yeah, you made a quite snide comment as well, which I quite liked. Is we always ask questions when we spend money on helping people, but we never ask questions when we're bombing people. We never ask how much that cost. Fair point. We don't. I mean, it's definitely more of a US thing, because when they're bombing people, it's like, oh yeah, there's a war over there. That's fine. Oh, how about this National Health Service? Nah, it costs too much money. But how much money do you spend in Iraq? Ah, never mind. Sorry about that.
I can't respond to that without becoming more political, which we're trying not to do. So I'll just nod. Go.
We can snip that part for none of our American listeners out there.
Let's keep it in so people know that we are making a concerted effort not to be political.
Yeah, we're not being political. It's not political.
Even though it's very hard.
Maybe
being political,
a little bit.
A bloody opinion, we obviously do.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Hypothetically.
I mean, how do you change stuff? How do you change the world from today and just start thinking about this world where the only thing really important is the carrying capacity of the Earth? How do you change that opinion? I mean, it would fix the climate crisis if we thought that way, if everyone thought that way.
Yeah, well, it's becoming trendy now, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But because now we have more words coming from more important people about it, doesn't necessarily mean we're getting more action.
No. So the Venus project is still quite small. I don't see a lot of traction. Like, I've been following for a long time, but like, they still don't have the amount of support, I would imagine, something as revolutionary as this should. I mean, it's very, very early, perhaps. That maybe in 100 years it'll be the thing. But I mean, it's right here, right now, and
it's
101-year-old come up with this idea, and he came up with it a long time ago.
It's inconceivable. That's the problem. Like, it's not just changing a policy somewhere. It's not just getting a group of people to think differently. It's changing the entire world. And that, if people don't think that they can improve education system, how on earth do you think is anyone going to approach thinking how do I fix this problem? It's not the climate crisis seems small fry in comparison to trying to change every single country to go from capitalist or communist or whatever it is they currently do to a totally new system. It doesn't seem like it's something that it's not even any one person can do. It's almost you literally need everyone to do. So one person can't really make any difference. But
yeah,
what's been said before about many things. So, and that was wrong.
It is. I mean, I don't see the negatives in this world personally. I mean, obviously there will be some, and the problems will be different too. But I think there'll be different problems that may be nice to have than the problems we have now, which seem to be the same problems over and over, like world poverty, world hunger, wars, destitution, climate crisis. I mean, these things have been around for a long time.
Yes.
Even though we pump in loads and loads of money into them, they don't seem to change.
No, but 2020, yeah, definitely different. There's a different feel about it.
I hope so. I hope this time we've been through now, the pandemic, is change things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this has hopefully brought the world a bit closer together. Well, 2 meters apart, but closer together.
Nice one. Nice one. Cool. Right. Well, it's 10 local time, so we probably should think about wrapping it up.
Oh, do we say times and stuff now? Do we? I'm sure you said earlier that the Tesla thing was 10:30, but you got your whole GMTs and BSTs messed up.
No. Well, I went onto a YouTube channel and it basically said that it was going live at 10:30, so I assume that's what it was. But then,
never trust YouTube. Never trust YouTube. That's why people listen to this on Google Podcasts.
Indeed. Don't listen to us on YouTube. What are we saying? No.
I don't know. If you're on YouTube, you can see the irony in my face.
If you can read Craig's facial expressions, you're doing better than most people. Right.
I would live well in this world where methodology is king and emotions have no part. I mean, they'd have to have some part somewhere, obviously, but not in policy and decision making.
Yes.
Anyway, we're done.
We are. Right. Okay. Well, then all that's left to say is thank you for joining us. Remember to think, educate, and act. And we'll catch you next time.